Hey everyone, welcome back once again to the Flip Genius podcast. I'm super excited today to have a friend of mine, Steven Howell, joining us. Steven, welcome to the podcast today.
Hey, Brandon, glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steven and I have gotten to know each other through a mutual mastermind, Coaching Inc., which I know, Steven, you were just at this week. I was not able to attend this time, but our dear friend Tom Kroll, and I say this a lot on our podcast, and I know you would agree with me, Stephen. Masterminds are one of the best ways to grow your business in whatever industry you're in because you have like-minded people that you can talk to the deals about. You can talk about the ups and downs of your industry, and so I'm a huge fan. I've been in a lot of different masterminds. I'm sure you would agree with that as well, Stephen.
Absolutely. It was an incredible time. So yeah, a Coaching Inc. mastermind, as Tom Kroll would say, bam.
That's right.
It was such a fun time, and just you hit the nail on the head. Just the networking, the conversation. So the speakers, all fantastic. But as we're having lunch, as we're having dinner, people with just that like-minded. Like people would throw out like, hey, here's, just honesty and vulnerability. Like, here's an issue I'm having in my business. And you would hear three, four other people at the table being like, "Well, hey, have you thought about this?" Or, tell me a little bit more about that, and throw out different suggestions and just really kind of that collaborative mindset to solve problems, move everybody forward. So it's such a powerful thing. I totally agree.
Yeah, they're great. So, Stephen, why don't we start out for the listeners? Let's kind of start out with what you were doing before you got into real estate. What was your background? And feel free to start as young as you want, kind of give us any background you feel is pertinent about yourself. And then would love to know kind of what business, what industry you were in before you got into real estate.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. So my journey in real estate started shortly after college. So I've been in the real estate game going on 15 years. So I actually got a job at Fidelity Investments, a financial institution, which was, a fantastic role coming out of college. I had a marketing degree with a finance background. And so awesome environment. I was living essentially in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and Fortune 500 company, wonderful. I was enrolling people into 401ks, and I would say about 10 months, a year in, there was an opportunity to get my Series 7 license and kind of get into the investment side of things, and do a little bit more sales and asset retention. And so that was kind of my first exposure to sales and building relationships and that type of thing.
Hmm.
And my now wife at the time, we were interested, like a lot of people getting started in this business, we started watching the house flipping shows. And so we invested into one of the, infomercials, and, invested into a program and
Which
started.
one? Which one was it? Is it
So
still
it
around?
was actually Dean Graziosi.
Mhm.
Back in the day, we invested into that. And I also had one of my best friends at the time, so we kind of had three of us going at it, and we were just kind of dabbling for the first year or two, and then I
Mhm.
started to. Speaking of networking, Brandon, I started going to a meetup in the Cincinnati area, and just loving the conversations. And I'm like, hey, like it really, just started to open things up. And there were somebody that was hosting one of the meetups. There was two brothers that were, and I was, just a few years out of college. They were maybe 6, 7 years older than me, and already
Mhm.
had a couple hundred units by a college campus, and they were flipping a couple dozen houses a year. I'm like, man, this is for me as a 24-year-old interested in real estate. I'm like, this is a connection I really would love to build into, and that's kind of what happened over the next 6 months. I just was out there taking action, kind of following their lead, just peppering them with questions. And so I had an opportunity about 6 months later. They said, hey, we're expanding what we're doing in Cincinnati into the Columbus market, and like you're super hungry. Like we would love to see what it looked like you helping us kind of lead acquisitions. And
Hmm.
so that's what I did for 2 years. It was a major decision. It was the year that I got married. I actually left Fidelity And that's what kind of started my small business entrepreneurship, so to speak, journey. Kind of working under their wing, helping them lead, acquisitions in that new market. And so we were doing everything from postcards to cold calling to PPC, and that really started to expand things for me. So that's I'll kind of pause there, but that was my start, so to speak, and then it was kind of like, hey, all right, I'm doing this full time, got to make this work, and everything. So.
So you got married, you left the Fortune 500 company, and started a new job, kind of in the real estate world, all in the same year.
That's right. That's right. Yes, 2011 was an intense year, but a good year.
Yeah, that's great. So you said when you first went to work with them, you were doing acquisitions for them, and I think you said they were doing a lot of flipping. Is that what you were primarily focused on? Is buying houses to flip?
Yeah, we were buying them to flip. We would essentially pick, the ones that we really wanted to flip, and then, a few as rentals, and then we would wholesale the rest. And
Okay.
so that kind of, and so one thing that I was already starting to, I was really interested in doing, following their system to the T because it was working, but I also had a big interest in probates and
Hmm.
doing, kind of deep diving a niche. And so I kind of combined, and they gave me a lot of free reign to be creative and things. So I combined a lot of their deals in Cincinnati were coming from probates. And then I kind of took a little bit of what I was doing and kind of built a little bit of a, system around that. And we implemented that in Columbus. And so that was, something that and then we of course did a lot more mail and cold calling and bench ads and PPC as well, but yeah, it was primarily flipping and wholesaling.
Okay. So when you were doing acquisitions, I know there's multiple ways that people handle acquisitions based on their business model. Were you taking the calls yourself, having the conversations, and then doing live in-person appointments, or was it all virtual? Were you operating just in that market or multiple markets?
Yeah, awesome question. So it was interesting. I was still living in Northern Kentucky at the time, and so I was actually doing it virtual. So one
Okay.
of my tasks, so to speak, was also to hire and train somebody on the disposition side for the properties that we were going to be wholesaling.
Mhm.
And so I found a boots on the ground person who would go out to our properties and meet with sellers, lockbox on the house, take pictures, take video. And so found kind of like a home improvement type person that was just an amazing people person, connector, instantly would build trust and rapport with people. And he was just fantastic. And so on our warm and hot leads, he would go out, talk with sellers, meet with them, and kind of be our boots on the ground person. And then I also hired someone that really started building into the relationship side on the buyers and with the title companies. And so actually, the 2 years I was doing that in this role, I never went to Columbus outside of like a luncheon or two to a property and just did all of the acquisition. So I would make the phone calls, I would take the phone calls, have all the interaction with the seller, and then when it would come time to see the property, that's when we would have the home improvement person come out and take pictures, video. And then I would also loop in kind of my right hand man, my team member that would handle the disposition side as well. So those would also have a little bit of a touch point with sellers on deals that we were doing.
Okay, great. So were you doing negotiating over the phone yourself until you got the
Absolutely.
property under contract, and then you would have your handyman go out and take pictures after you were already under contract, or have them go out and meet with the seller first and then come back and give you the information, and then you make them an offer and negotiate?
Yeah, great question, Brandon. So I actually, it would be a case by case basis, but I'd say the majority of the time I would have an initial part of the conversation. We would start talking numbers, kind of give a verbal ballpark, And then when we're, feeling like this could be a good fit, I would have them come out, see the property, and then typically, that next day I'd follow up with the final offer.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We've kind of done a little bit of both, just depending on where we were in the market cycle. If we were getting a ton of leads, we could be a little more choosy. And so we would kind of give them a ballpark, like you said, over the phone and say, we're probably going to be somewhere in the 150 to 165 range. Is that kind of what you're thinking? And if they're like, oh, no, I wanted 300,000, we might not even go see it. But if they're like, it's a little bit low, but it's close, then we would schedule an appointment to go see it. And then after we see it, we would make them our final offer. So it sounds like that's kind of the way you guys did it as well.
Yeah, that's exactly how we did it as well.
Okay. And what kind of volume were you doing back then? I know it's been a while, but do you remember like how many leads or how many appointments, how many deals y'all were doing in a month or in a year?
Yeah, it would fluctuate. So we would be like kind of in that 3 to 6 deals a month. So there would be like a three, and then next month six, and then two, four, five. It
Yeah.
would kind of float between that 3 to 6 range. So we would have our person that was our boots on the ground going out to four to five what we call hot, like really hot appointments a week, and then a lot of the other ones were doing verbally over the phone. So,
Okay. Great.
yeah.
And then you had a dispo position as well, who was then selling the properties that you guys decided to wholesale. What percentage do you think was wholesale at that time when you came on board versus flip?
Yeah, as I came on and we were kind of breaking into Columbus, I would say it was 80 to 90% wholesale, and then
Hmm.
and then the other 10 to 20% flip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the great things in real estate is that there's a lot of different parts of real estate, even in the single family world that you can do. Obviously, buying rentals, wholesaling, flipping, short term rentals, creative financing deals. There's just so many different ways. And we've had to pivot a little bit as well. I actually started flipping, which a lot of people start with wholesaling and then get into flipping. I started with flipping. And then probably 10 years, 12 years after I was flipping houses, I learned about wholesaling. I didn't even know what it was before that. And then we started wholesaling. And as the market changed, we started doing more and more wholesaling and only flipping, a small percentage. And then the last couple of years, we've been doing more flipping and less wholesaling. So kind of changes as the market changes. But we did see a shift like you did where the majority of them went to wholesaling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's wonderful, Brandon, that you have that background of flipping. That's something that I didn't have when I first started, and I wish that I would have really built out that skill, because having that confidence of like, hey, there's not only one acquisition method or one disposition method, there's multiple things we can do, and having that confidence on that side is such a big deal when you're talking with sellers and going on these appointments and all of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you worked for that company for 2 years, and then what next? What'd you do after you worked with them?
Yeah, so after that, I had the opportunity. I started having a lot of people reaching out as they saw we were doing larger spread probate deals. And there was just an opportunity to do some teaching. And so I had expressed an interest to the two brothers I was working with, and I was kind of studying internet marketing and consulting and things a little bit on the side. And expressed an interest, and they said, "Yeah, Steven, you would be great. Like, go do your thing." And so I had decided, and this was like maybe 2014, to put out a video like how to wholesale real estate with probate step by step. And this was back in the early days of YouTube. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to share my process. And I forget who I was studying at the time. And they said, show that you can help somebody by actually helping them. Like, if you're going to do any type of coaching, training, teaching, don't be afraid to just give away like your best stuff. And so I kind of took that with my limited knowledge at the time, and I was like, you know what? Like, let me just turn on the camera, record, and do a little training. And it started to really take off. And I think that video, this was again way back in 2014, organically got 178,000 views over the course of 10 years.
Wow.
And I started getting, hundreds of comments a week of people just being like, Steven, this was great. And I look back at the video and it's like, it looks like I'm in my parents' basement or something, and the lighting is horrible, the audio is horrible. I cringe and I'm like, oh man, what. But so anyways, that kind of launched the consulting side because I have always had a love for teaching and helping and all of that. And so people were like, "Hey, this is great." And so then I made a little 10-day boot camp and said, "Hey, if this was helpful, let me break this down into actionable, like little 5-minute videos of here's how we get the probate leads, here's how we talk with the executors, here's how we mail them." And then after that, and so that essentially launched Brandon a coaching and consulting thing that I did. And so I continued doing deals. I moved from Cincinnati to Dayton, where I am now, and continued to operate in real estate and kind of have my own house business. But then I also started working with clients peppered around the country, helping them to do their first deals in probate. And that was kind of a love and a passion, of mine. And that's something that I did just up until recently, for about 10 to 12 years, just kind of one-on-one coaching style, with them. And so that was interesting because I had the virtual experience. And so I worked with some clients who were doing it virtually. But then I also have my own, local house business here in Dayton. And so I also do things in person. And so that was, such a fun time of just being able to kind of share that process and see clients do deals peppered around the country in that way too. So
Yeah. I didn't realize you must have been one of the early coaches in real estate if you got into it in 2014, I think you said, because I know there's a lot of coaches in it now, but back then I don't remember there being as many in the industry.
yes, it was definitely a different world, and it has expanded quite a lot over the course of the time. And just the amount of content in general, online, it's almost overwhelming. Of like, yes, there is a lot of free, amazing content out there, but it's like, how do I get into ROI quickly? How can I take all this plethora of knowledge and what steps do I truly need to take to really start seeing some of that ROI? I think is a challenge people are facing now.
Yeah. What do you think was the number one pushback or holdback that you saw for some of your students? If I know you're not coaching anymore, right? You're not doing the coaching and consulting.
No, I'm not. So I actually, so another thing in addition to probate that I was always really big on was just building lists. So whether you're doing direct mail or cold calling, building a highly filtered, stacked list where there's multiple pain points, so to speak, where someone would have the interest of working with an investor as opposed to maybe listing a property. And always of the mindset of like, we're not trying to talk someone into anything or change their mind. We want to be a servant in the marketplace. And so building like whether it's a driving for dollars list or an out of state owners list or tired landlords list or somebody that has multiple of those pain points. One of the softwares that I used in my own business for a long, long time, still do, and that I saw just my clients utilizing and needing was Deal Machine. And so I would do webinars with Deal Machine. I did a lot of driving for dollars and list pulling, and so had an opportunity to link up with Deal Machine and help with their partnerships and help train their clients on how to use Deal Machine, how I've used it in my own business, how I've used it in helped many of my students, former students, use it in their businesses. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now to answer your question on that, which is awesome. And I have so much fun doing that, but then also still have my house business, still have the love for teaching and all of that. But to answer your question, Brandon, you mentioned what was like, was it the biggest pain point that I saw
Hmm. With your
people having?
students. Yeah. What was the biggest holdback or pain point that you saw with newbies coming in that you were teaching and training?
Yeah, I would say confidence. One of the thing that I loved the most is having someone that maybe they have just been almost feeling like they're just running into a brick wall and they've tried a couple of real estate programs or maybe haven't tried any at all. They know it's possible. Whether they're slightly introverted, whether they haven't had a huge like sales background or training, they have the dream, they know it's possible, and helping them to go from that point to like I can actually do this. And so I would say one of the biggest things is just the confident like that was the biggest sticking point for people, is just believing that they can truly do it, that it's truly possible for them. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to take years. If we're willing to truly work hard, follow a process, and really commit these next 90 days, the next 120 days, it's probably going to take more work than you think. You're going to have to get more outside of your comfort zone than you think. But then also from another perspective, it doesn't have to be this crazy process that takes decades to do. It's like it's something truly that you can do. And so helping people through that, process, I think, is something that I would see as as a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I first started doing coaching in 2016, so a couple years after you, and did live events for a couple years, and then got out of coaching and just focused on building the real estate business for years, and just got back into coaching a couple years ago. And it's interesting to me. I just dealt with this recently. I've had two students of mine, clients that we work with, that told me that when they get a lead, they completely dread calling the lead. The first one was, which is interesting to me, but the first one said every time the phone rings, they're scared to death. They don't want to take the call. If it's a bad call, if the person yells at them or tells them, don't ever call me again, or threatens them, it just ruins their whole day, and they just can't stand to take another call. And the second person that I had tell me that, like, man, we get a list of leads, and I just dread every second that I have to call and talk to these people on the phone. And I thought that's kind of interesting in this business because, and I guess newbies don't understand that or don't realize that's what the business is. But I think it's that way in most industries, especially from a sales focus, is number one, you've got to get leads, right? So how are you going to get leads? And you mentioned
Yes.
direct mail and cold calling and texting, whatever you have to do to get net leads coming in the door. And then once you have those leads, you have to figure out which one of those leads lines up with our business model, lines up with whatever we're selling or whatever we're buying. And so you have to have those conversations with them. And the majority of them, especially if you're cold calling or texting, you're calling 1,000 people. Do you want to sell your house? No. Okay. You want to sell your house? No. Okay. You want to sell your
Hmm.
house? No. And so the majority of them are going to say no. Some of them are going to be mad, but you're looking for the ones who do want to sell and need help. And so it was just interesting to me, as I have coached people over these years, that some of them get into the industry and are totally fearful, totally worried, even dreading getting the leads to begin with.
Absolutely. I think that hits the nail right on the head. And it's like, I almost think sometimes, there is a certain percentage of folks that come in and think like, I don't have to talk to anyone. And I get it. I can be a little bit more, I'm like right on that edge of like a little bit extroverted, but also very introverted. And so I get it. So that was me when I started, like, man, I'm not this like big cold calling person. I had a big why, as I went full time into this business, and it was a very large commission thing. It's like I am newly married, and so, part of it is that huge why of just like, got to do this. But but yeah, it can be. I would say that is one of the biggest pain points right there. Is just the fear of talking to people, and
Mm.
you're right. It's in any industry where there is the marketing and the sales and all of that happening. I would say one thing that took the pressure off for me, and something that I would share with, students, is just like, not like taking the pressure off of you want to follow a process. You want to follow, especially when you're, kind of having that discovery call with the seller and figuring out, like you said, if they line up with the services that we can, offer with them. But knowing that I didn't need to talk them into anything, knowing like it was my job to make contact. I just need to get on the phone. The more I, just make contact with the seller, if it's a yes, if it's a no, if it's a maybe so, there's a process for each of those. And I don't need to try to, do all these verbal gymnastics and try to, and that's not me anyways, but like that, I would try to share that with students of just with all of these leads, just make contact, and you're going to figure out how to navigate through the no's, how, of course the yeses, and then the maybe so's, and you're going to get better in the craft as you do this. And so that's something that I think hopefully can give folks confidence that your job is to make contact and just consistently make contact with those leads that are coming in and following the processes for each of those. So,
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Just make contact. So you
mhm.
mentioned a second ago, and I want to dig into this a little bit before we move on to what you're currently doing. But you mentioned list stacking, and it's one of the things, obviously, that's super important in the real estate industry. I want you to go into detail about what that means for our listeners. But one of the things that obviously we do in real estate is we're trying to find people who have a reason to sell, right? So we're not necessarily looking for somebody who's listing their property on the MLS as a retail sale, meaning they've rehabbed it, it's in great shape, they have plenty of time, they want top dollar. Right? If you want that, go list it with an agent on the MLS. That's great. That's the way you're going to make the most money. And there's tons of agents out there that can help you do that. What we do as real estate investors when we're flipping or wholesaling or even buying and holding is we want to find those properties that are usually off market, so they're not listed on the MLS, and that the people might have a desire to sell or a reason to sell at a price below market. So they may not have rehabbed the property. It may be a rental property, could be a probate that you mentioned. Someone had passed away and left their home to an heir, a lot of different things. So that's the people we're trying to find. And so rather than us just going door to door, which is also another method, we do what's called list stacking. So kind of explain to everyone what list stacking is, how you get the data and how you do list stacking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and list stacking has changed over the years. I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago paying, I forget what it was, $97 a month or $47 a month for like a special list stacking software. And that's one of the things that technology has gotten so much better that that is included now and where you can, get your data from. But essentially what list stacking is for anyone listening, you are basically trying to increase the likelihood of focusing your marketing efforts on someone who is more likely to do business with you as a real estate investor. And so, what I mean by that, to give you kind of a practical example, so where I'm at in Dayton, Ohio, there's a zip code 45424, which is Huber Heights, which is one of my favorite areas to do deals in. There are 21,300 properties in that zip code. And that's just one zip code in my market. I'm in like five to six counties. If you total up all the zip codes over the 5 counties, there's probably like 90. There's like 40 zip codes I kind of do more, deals in, and then there's the other 40 or 50 that I don't focus as much on. So in this particular zip code, I could market to all 21,000 properties, but like, what if we go in there and we say, okay, out of these properties, I want to make sure there's at least 40% equity in the home. Okay. So that might drop the list from 21,000 down to 10,000 properties. And then from there, I want to say, okay, I want to make sure that I am talking to likely the property owner. They have an accurate phone number. And I mean, I can specify all sorts of stuff, but another example is I'll say I want to look at homes that are between 700 square feet and 2,500 square feet. So I want to kind of not focus on the homes that are very, very, small, below 700 square feet, and I want to, anything over 25, 2,800 square feet. It's going to be a massive rehab, and so especially if I'm focused on wholesale. I may also say I want to look for homes that are valued at 260K and lower in that particular market.
Okay.
And then from there, I can say, all right, well, what about the homes that have been owned for 7 years or more, or 15 years or more? There hasn't been a sale date on the home in the last 7 to 15 years. Those are two kind of ranges that typically work good for us. And it takes a lot of the newer, somebody's just bought the home. They may not want to sell 3 months later or, a year later.
Mhm.
I can also say, hey, the homes that are built between 1945 and 2010. So I'm taking away from the list the really, really old homes and also the newer builds. And then from there, so that might have filtered that list all the way down to 3,300 properties as opposed to 21,000, or maybe it filters it down to 6,000. But then I can go in there and say, all right, now out of that list, I want to focus on all of my out-of-state owners. And so that may be a very precise list of 500 sellers or 900 sellers in that zip code. And then if we do the whole county, obviously it's even more. And so then I can say, okay, well, I want to see the ones that are out of state owners, but they're also behind on taxes, or they're also 65 and above. So maybe they've owned the property for 15 years. They're 55, 60, or 65 and above. So maybe they're kind of a tired landlord.
Mm-hmm.
So that, Brandon, is what we'll see. And then when we pull that list, and that's something that I utilize Deal Machine for to do that exact stacking that I talked about, it
Mm-hmm.
instantly skip trace the list. So you're going to have like best in class phone numbers. You're going to know who's likely the owner, who's likely the tenant, who's likely the family member. And then there's going to be a little column to the left that shows you like this person is on four other distress lists. They're an out-of-state owner, or they're a tired landlord, or this is a vacant property. It's on the vacants list. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you see a property that's on seven different lists, 15 different lists, six different lists, the likelihood of there being a pain point there or a motivation where they not just want to sell but need to sell to an investor, you're able to focus your time, your marketing efforts, and so list stacking, that's how we utilize it to say, okay, we want to be very focused with our marketing, with our time. We want to, have some pain points on there where this is an out-of-state owner, they're behind on taxes, the property's vacant, they're potentially a tired landlord, and let's start there with our marketing efforts. Or maybe it's a probate list, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. It's a great explanation of list stacking and how you utilize marketing dollars better. Like you said, rather than sending direct mail to 21,300 people, knowing that 80% of them, 90% of them aren't going to want to sell, you've narrowed it down by stacking up that data to just those that are on, say, five or more lists. And now you're going to send mail to 900 people instead of 21,000. So it costs you much less, but you're also increasing your likelihood of getting a contract, right? Because you're targeting the people who are most likely to sell based on those being on five or six or 10 different lists.
Exactly. And another thing, Brandon, I was just talking about, so not only is it focusing on the marketing, or is it honing in the marketing spend and saving so much there, but there is like a mental and emotional capital as well. When you're focused on the right, 1,000 sellers versus the other 20,000, for those listening who are building out a team, and maybe you have a person that's doing the calls or doing the mail, you're saving money, you're saving time, but you're saving that mental and emotional capital of having to talk with 20,000 people who were never going to sell in the first place. And so, especially in today's market, when you're listening to this, utilizing data in our favor to say, all right, let's try to really fish from the right pond here.
Mhm.
It's powerful. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. So now, fast forward to where you are currently, and I know you said you're working with Deal Machine, and we are going to do. We talked about this. We're going to do on a future in the near future. We're going to do another interview podcast where you're going to show all of our listeners and our clients exactly how you use Deal Machine, and I'm excited about that, so they can see somebody who's done it for many years and works with a company actually go through like best practices, best use of how to use Deal Machine. So super excited for that. We'll get that scheduled in the near future. So I know you're doing some of that, and you still have your house business. So I'd love for you to kind of catch us up with what a day to day looks like for you, how much time you're spending in your own house business versus how much time you're spending in Deal Machine. Do you have people still doing wholesaling? What is your current day look like in your real estate investment world?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is deal machine heavy right now. So over the last few years, as I've scaled back the coaching from 12 years, I and then as I'm doing this role with Deal Machine, the local house business is small right now, and so we primarily wholesale, a handful of deals a quarter. And my wife and I are kind of entering into that phase where right now we want to take on rentals, as a retirement thing. So kind of our model is like, hey, we're going to wholesale what we don't want to keep, and then we're really, especially this year, really starting to lean into like, hey, let's start looking at rentals. And so I have a couple of virtual assistants on the team. I have I really scaled it back, so it's something, honestly, Brandon, that I'm kind of building out. I have a couple of virtual assistants there. We still do the probate marketing. We still send mailers out. And so that's something that I would say it's like an 80/20, 90/10 with Deal Machine and everything in there as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think again, we talked about a few minutes ago. We talked about the shifting market, and really wholesaling over the last couple of years has gotten more and more difficult just because we've been in a seller's market. And so, as I mentioned, we've done the same thing. We've gone from doing 9 or 10 deals a month a few years ago, and having 9 people on staff to scaling back, and we're doing more flips now, fewer deals, bigger deals, having to spend more money, and it's because it's been a seller's market for years. There are still wholesale deals out there, and you do come across them, as you know, but we've kind of seen the same thing that you have over the last couple of years. That it's just wholesaling has become a little bit tighter. I think it'll open up again in the future as rates come down and
Yep.
sellers start having a more balanced view, realistic view of what their property's worth. But I've kind of seen that across the industry. Those people who are doing a lot of wholesale deals over the past have slowed down over the last couple of years. So now you're focused primarily on. I love the buy and hold. You make money by wholesaling and flipping, and you build wealth by building rentals, buying and holding rentals over the long period. So I love that you guys are doing that for the future, for the retirement, and then spending most of your time on Deal Machine. What are you doing with Deal Machine specifically?
Yeah, so Deal Machine, I am head of their new partnerships, and so I am working with folks like you, Brandon, and so it's awesome because I have the coaching background, the training background, have that heart, and I get to work with your audience, and I'm super excited, and so I do trainings on exactly, hey, here's how we're using the data, here's how we're doing the list stacking, click by click, and so. Super, super excited to do that with you. And then we have a weekly masterclass where we have guest speakers come out, thought leadership spotlight series. So I get to kind of host a few of those like podcast style things, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Speak to people doing amazing things, and I'm super honored to be on here with you. I love what you're doing in your business, and yeah, we will definitely get that scheduled. That's one of the things that like I don't want it to be like. I want it to be very practical. So when we do that for your audience, people can go in, they can try Deal Machine for free, and we can go in click by click in their zip codes. I shared, Huber Heights, one of my zip codes. We can go in their zip code and build a list, a highly filtered, stacked list for them that by the end of that like 30-minute training that we do, they will have the list that they can start marketing to in their area. So it can be very, very practical. And so I get to do things like that on a daily basis, which is a ton of fun. And then my wife and I are really starting to kind of beef up our marketing, so to speak, as we want to, take down more rentals. And so I think you touched on it because I agree with how the market has ebbed and flowed. So it's an awesome, awesome time to really hone in on understanding the skill of how to also flip houses, like you guys are doing. And I think that's is highly valuable for people. So.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited excited to do that as well. So in wrapping up here, Stephen, again, thank you so much for joining and sharing a little bit about your past and your experience and what you're doing now. We will definitely get something lined up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and where you can walk us through how to use Deal Machine. I think that'll be very useful. I may be able to, if we can figure this out offline, but I have a student right now in the Georgia market. They're a little bit outside of Atlanta that I think would be great for them to see how Deal Machine works and let you walk them through that process. So maybe on that training, like you said, I can have them join. We can coordinate a time where they will be on. So you, me, and this particular student, and let you talk to them directly and kind of coach them. And that will be a training for everybody else to see exactly how you do it, hands-on learning. If you're open for that, I think that would be a huge help.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that, Brandon. It'd be an honor to do that. Yeah. Let's do it.
Great. All right, man. Well, thank you again. Any parting wisdom, any parting words before we jump off here?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on. Parting wisdoms, parting words is just to take action. One thing from this podcast, one thing that you're learning from Brandon, take it and implement it this week. I heard this quote. It's kind of in the fitness world, but it relates to this as well. As it's better to be consistently good and showing up day by day than occasionally great. You know,
Hmm.
showing up and having a decent workout each day is better than showing up, once every 3 weeks, getting a 3 hour workout in. And so applying that in this real estate world, just keep chipping away at it. Focus right now on the marketing, having, making contact, having conversations, following the process that Brandon's laying out for you here. Believe in yourself. I know it's easy with a lot of training out there, a lot of information to be like, how in the world can I do this? And from someone that has worked with hundreds of clients over the last 12 years, folks that have been very, very introverted that never thought in a million years they could do their first deal, their first 10 deals. You can do this following the process just step by step. And so, anybody listening to this who's just like, man, can I even do this? I just want to encourage you that you absolutely can. It's going to take a ton of hard work, but just continue to follow the process. You're in great hands with Brandon. And so, yeah, it was my pleasure to come out today, Brandon. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Thanks again for joining today. I look forward to catching up with you again soon and getting that next interview scheduled where we'll teach everybody how to use Deal Machine. So, Stephen, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
All right. You too. Thanks, Brandon.